Hey, hi everyone. Just confirming if my audio is perfect and my screen is visible to everyone. Yeah. Okay. I'll take that as a yes. So thank you everyone for joining my session. So today we are going to talk about introduction to cloud and cloud security using Microsoft Azure. So the primary focus will be on the basic Microsoft services, Microsoft Azure services, and we'll primarily focus on covering implementation of cloud security using the in-house Azure tool called as the Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Okay. So about me, so I am a senior software engineer working at Zscaler here in Pune, India. I am a cloud and cloud security enthusiast, and I have delivered quite a lot of sessions with respect to cloud, and I am an active contributor with regards to cloud security blogs and publications. I'm also a recognized AWS community builder who have been recently recognized for my contribution in the field of security, cloud security with regards to AWS. Here is my Twitter handle and my LinkedIn info. You can connect with me on these channels. Okay, so let's start with the session. So before we start, I always take a few minutes to recognize or maybe talk about the motivation behind the session that I'm trying to deliver here. So the main motivation here is like the cloud global security market is expected to grow from 5 billion to around 13 billion by 2022, and that's an estimated CAGR of 17%. With that, there is a lack of awareness about cloud security among organizations and fear of losing their data and confidentiality, right? And further, the biggest identified cloud threats occur mostly due to the misconfiguration of cloud platforms. So, cloud is the go-to thing now, right? I mean, cloud is the future, and still there are hesitations because of lack of awareness of cloud security. And as I mentioned, the biggest identified cloud threat is misconfiguration of cloud platforms, which is in our hands. So that's what motivates for me to talk about cloud security to the public, in the public, and deliver sessions, write blogs, so that there is awareness about cloud security and how we can implement it. To support this, I have this data, so which shows us that misconfiguration of the cloud platform is the major reason, or maybe is the major biggest or cloud security threat that we have in here. So moving ahead, so the agenda for today's session is introduction to cloud and public cloud service providers. So just a one PPT which illustrate how cloud works and the major public cloud service providers. The next we'll try to cover cloud security, which is a shared responsibility model. We'll talk about cloud security posture management, and then comes the heart of our presentation, that is Microsoft Defender for Cloud. We'll then have the demo, and maybe I'll try and reach out to the comments and try to answer the queries at the end of the session. So introduction to cloud, I mean, I'm assuming the audience here is well aware of Azure and various cloud and cloud service providers therein. But this is a brief diagram that very simply explain how cloud works, right? So in very simple terms, I read a meme the other day. So in very simple terms, cloud is like using other people's or maybe any other person's computer over internet, right? So we are making use of resources which are available at a certain place. In our case, this is a data center, and then we are consuming those resources over the internet, right? And we consume it in our offices and our home, anywhere. I mean, anywhere we go, we consume those services. And the idea was, the idea is age old, but there are a lot more players involved now who provide these cloud services. The major players here are, as I mentioned, Microsoft Azure, Amazon, Alibaba, Salesforce, Google Cloud, and many more. And then today we are going to talk about the connect here, right? So the connect here, that is the security aspect. So whatever data or maybe whatever resources we are trying to access here, how we can secure is what we are going to talk about today. So now we'll talk about cloud security. So in very simple terms, what is cloud security? So cloud security basically refers to the technologies, policies, controls, and services that protect the cloud data, applications, and infrastructure from threats. And cloud security in general is a shared responsibility model. This diagram provided by Microsoft Azure beautifully, explains how cloud security is a shared responsibility model. So here we'll take into account the IaaS aspect only, because we are going to focus mostly on infrastructure as a service that Azure provides. So if you notice, we'll start from the bottom. So as I said, cloud is nothing but resources that are residing somewhere, and we are accessing it through internet, right? So the physical host, physical network, and the physical data center, they are being provided to us for in the context of today's session, we'll only consider Azure. So they are being provided to us by Azure. So since they are located at their data center, they are located with them, so the security aspect of those things come, or maybe is taken care by the cloud service provider. The next part is the identity and directory infrastructure, application, network controls, and operating system. So now these all four things are in our hand. Whatever we are choosing, that's what the application, or maybe the resource that we are trying to use, will use. So just to take an example, if we create a virtual machine, it will ask us which OS we want to use, which operating system that we want to use, how should be the network setup, which should the VM be public to the internet, or maybe it should be accessible from anywhere or something like that. So that is the network control. Identity and access, meaning to which users the resource can be shared and everything. So these settings come into picture when we actually create the resource, and hence that portion is, the responsibility of that security is ours, or maybe the end users. And at the last, the responsibility that is always written by the customer is the information and the data, devices, accounts, and identities. So basically, when we create the resources and we store data, so that's our data again. So even though the physical security of the data and the storage and everything is taken care by the cloud service provider, the actual data that we store, we should be aware, or maybe we should take extra care that we store the data in an encrypted format, so that we follow the best practice, and there is a less possibility of a breach. So that's how beautifully this diagram explains the shared responsibility model, and for the resources that we use on cloud. Now moving ahead, so we'll talk about the challenges involved in implementing cloud security. So we use cloud, we have now read or maybe heard about cloud security, but why am I making such a big fuss about it? What are the challenges involved here? So basically, the biggest challenge here is lack of cloud security architecture and strategy. So there is, initially when we design products, or maybe new organizations, or maybe organizations which are new to cloud are trying to adapt to cloud, there is a lack of the security portion in their architecture. So that is the one major challenge involved, that we need to design a secure architecture. Second is the nature of the cloud, right? It's distributed and ever changing. So basically, resources are available across regions. We may need to deploy resources as per our customers requirement, basically saving data in a specific region and everything. And we don't know, where actually the resource is residing, right? So it's a ever changing nature of cloud, which again makes us very difficult. Third thing is limited cloud usage visibility. So again, as I said, this adds to the second point. We have minimum visibility over the cloud. We just know the data where it is. The region of the data where we store it, but still, there may be few internal resources that our services are consuming, which you are not aware about. So the overall cloud visibility, getting a view of the overall cloud is very difficult. We may, if we manually try to go and check out each and every service, it's very difficult. So that's another important challenge. Then there is lack of personal experience in cloud security measures. So as security is a ever evolving aspect, and nobody can perfect or maybe implement 100% security. So with that comes a lack of personal experience. So with the incoming technologies and the rapid changes in cloud, there is a lack of experience, or maybe a lack of resources who deal with cloud security. So that's another challenge. And the last point is compliance and regulations. So when I talk about compliance and regulations, so these are basically set of rules that are set by certain standards, uh, which you need to follow to basically operate in a certain sphere of a certain sphere, basically maybe a healthcare or maybe a financial domain or something like that. So there are so many compliance and regulations that have come up that it's, again, it becomes very difficult for someone to master it and maybe implement or include that in the cloud security design. So these are the crucial challenges that are involved when we try and implement cloud security. So what next? So what we can do to overcome these challenges? So now for that, cloud security posture management comes into picture. So cloud security posture management basically answers all our queries or all our challenges, and it is defined by Gartner as a continuous process of cloud security improvement and adaptation to reduce the likelihood of a successful attack. Okay, and as I mentioned, it overcomes the unique nature of cloud, basically overcomes the security and introduces a new security concept that can address the distributed and constantly changing cloud infrastructure. So that's what CSPM comes up with. CSPM aims to help the user with three major pillars. So one is developing and enforcing end-to-end security policies. So whenever you are creating any services or resources on Azure, maybe you are creating virtual machines, you are creating storage accounts. So CSPM helps us develop and enforce end-to-end security policies on those services. The next thing is helps us with risk and vulnerability assessment and risk visualization. So if we create resources, it will help us with the risk that is involved with that resource and the vulnerabilities that come up with that resource and solutions as well to those problems. And it will give us a visual view, or maybe a visual or a UI based interface through which we can visualize all the risks and vulnerabilities. And the last point is compliance monitoring, incident response, and DevOps integration. So the last point that we had in the challenge was regarding compliance. So CSPMs helps us generate a view with respect to various compliance standards so that we can, it provides an easy to understand way through which we can implement our security policies and become compliant with respect to standards that we wish for. Okay, so I'll maybe pause for a bit and go to the next slide, which basically illustrates cloud security and compliance standards. So before moving ahead with various compliance before moving ahead with the Azure Defender, I just wanted to clarify what exactly are the compliance standards. So as I mentioned earlier, so compliance standards are a set of rules which any organization needs to follow, so that to make sure that they are compliant with respect to a certain security standard, right? So there is CIS, which is Center for Internet Security. There is NIST. There is PCI DSS. So I'll maybe explain the significance of each standard as well. So PCI DSS is payment cards, and it's related to our data that is fine, which is related to the financial domain. So if you are planning to maybe start up into a financial domain, so this is the standard that you need to follow. So maybe you may have visited PayPal sites or maybe PayPal app, and here in India we have Paytm. So when you open those apps, you'll see that it is PCI DSS compliant. So that's how it works. Then there is HIPAA. HIPAA is a healthcare standard in the US. So if you are going to, or maybe any organization which is in the healthcare domain, they need to comply or maybe be in alignment with respect to the HIPAA standard. Okay, so all these standards have different rule sets based on what type of data an organization is storing, and these compliance standards expect the organization to be in alignment, so if they need to operate in that domain or something like that, right? So a lot about compliance standards. Now we'll move ahead to the hero of today's presentation, that is Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So basically this was answer, or maybe Microsoft's answer to CSPM. So how can a Azure user leverage the CSPM tool? So they need not go to any third party vendor. They have an in-house tool. So first they should explore it and then maybe look out for third party vendors. So what Microsoft Defender for Cloud is? So it's a tool for security posture management and threat protection. It protects workloads running in Azure, hybrid, and other cloud platforms. So Azure Defender recently launched capabilities so that it can connect to your AWS and Google accounts as well. So why the need? Again, it's a very critical aspect here. So if you may have noticed, in the current age, most of the organization are aligned towards multi-cloud. No, I mean, most big organizations, they have their workloads running across clouds. Maybe they have workloads in Azure, some workloads in Google, some workloads in AWS, while they are trying to leverage the best out of the lot. So each cloud has its own best features. So in the process of utilizing those best features, most organizations have their workloads distributed among clouds. So that's where I guess Azure came up with this idea of merging or maybe creating a centralized view for an organization, even if they have workloads in other cloud providers. So that's a very important benefit of Defender. And then it also provides the tools needed to harden your resources, track your security posture, protect against cyber attacks, and streamline security management. So all in all, it's a product which provides you the cloud security posture management features, and it's a CSPM product basically, which will provide you a centralized view of the resources in your account with respect to security. That's what Azure Defender does in simple terms. I'll talk about the features, and maybe we'll move towards the demo, because this has been a lot of theory, and I like to maybe walk people across or walk the audience across the actual working of these tools, so that we develop more interest in it. So we'll just walk across the salient features of Microsoft Defender. So the first feature or the first pillar of Microsoft Defender is that it continuously assesses. So basically, it continuously assesses all the resources that are lying around or present in your subscription. It will generate a secure score. So secure score is basically a score which denotes the security health of your subscription, if of your Azure subscription. Then it will provide you vulnerability assessments. So basically, I'll talk a bit about vulnerability, that what a vulnerability is. So when you create a VM and deploy your application, in the process you also install various modules on that VM. You install third party software in it. So these third party apps that you install on the VM, so these again are some code written in the backend, right? And hackers basically try to get into those apps through some code vulnerabilities. So I mean, through some code liabilities, which in turn are known as vulnerabilities. So basically, any third party tools that you install on your VM may generate vulnerabilities in your virtual machine. So that's what a vulnerability is. Then it will display the asset inventory. Asset inventory is basically the details of all the resources in your Azure subscription. So again, that was another challenge that we had while implementing security, that we did not have a clear view of all the resources in our subscriptions. So that problem again is solved by Defender. It is showing us a entire view of all the resources that are present in our subscription. Then it will provide us a regulatory compliance. So regulatory compliance, it provides with respect to certain standards like CIS and NIST and PCI DSS. So whatever compliance standards we talk about, so Azure is also providing you a security view with respect to those standards, right? And it also provides you the integrity and monitoring features. The next main pillar is secure. I mean, it secures these things. I mean, it not only provides you the security related findings, but it also helps you secure or maybe remediate those findings. So how? So basically, it will you have a act now button or basically a remediate now button available for each security finding, and on the click of a button you can remediate that security finding in your subscription. It also provides just-in-time VM access, adaptive network hardening, and adaptive application control. And last but not the least, it also helps you defend. So how it helps you defend is basically it detects and resolves threats to resources and services. It's possible to get alerts of all the security events that is happening in your account. So we can configure email alerts to our admins or security team, so that any security activity that is happening in our account is timely notified to our security leads, and they can actually take actions on that. And one more important feature is that integration with Microsoft Sentinel or other SIEM tools. So SIEM tools like Splunk and others, so we can integrate all our findings, all our Defender findings with these tools. Okay. So I feel that's a lot of talking, and I hope all this interests you. And now we'll come to the most interesting part, that is the demo. So we'll go towards the demo. So here I am on my Microsoft Azure portal. I'll directly navigate to, I mean, in the left navigation pane, you can see the Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So when you go to that, all right, so you'll see the first thing is the setup. I mean, I'll talk through the setup, which I have already done, but I'll talk through for the sake of audience. So this is the central view that we get basically through the Defender. And how do we set up that? I mean, we need some initial setup, right? So by default, it is enabled, but for some advanced settings, we need to go to environment settings. Okay, here we need to select our subscription. And here you can select the plans, the Defender plans that you want. So there are two plans, that is enhanced security and enable all Microsoft Defender for cloud plans. So enhanced security is a free, enhanced security of this is a free plan, which just comes up with few features of Defender, like the secure score and continuous assessment. Whereas the Microsoft Defender for cloud plan, it comes up with all the features like secure score, just in time access, vulnerability reporting, dashboards and everything, right? Then there is the email notification part, which is important. So here you can set up email of your security teams so that they are notified for any events that happen in your subscription. And then there are some advanced features which we'll not talk about today. We'll cover a few basic features that we have in place, and the most interesting and the most I would say to know features when you are dealing with Microsoft Defender. Okay, so I'll go back to Microsoft Defender. We'll go to the overview page, and the two aspects that, or maybe we'll cover three aspects. We'll cover three aspects of Microsoft Defender. First is the inventory. So inventory, as I said, it provides you a centralized view of all the resources in our account, uh, in the subscription per se. So if you notice, this is just a trial account that I created for the demo today. So it just has a few resources like virtual machines, storage accounts, and SQL servers. You see the total resources as 147 because that's the advanced feature that I have enabled here. I have connected my AWS account with it. So if you notice, it's showing the AWS resources like S3 bucket, VPCs, and everything. So if you connect other cloud service provider accounts, it will show you the inventory or maybe the list of all resources that are present in the AWS account, a GCP project, or an Azure subscription here. So that's what inventory does. It basically shows you the list of all resources, right? Now we'll move towards the most important aspects, that how we can improve the security posture of our account or the subscription using Microsoft Defender. The first thing we can do is go to secure score. So secure score are easy to understand findings, and each finding has a point associated with it with respect to the criticality of the finding. So just for sake of an example, if I say that the data in your storage accounts must be encrypted, so this is a highly critical finding because storage is the most hackable, or maybe a resource that can be the most prone to attacks, and because it has data for obvious reasons, right? So securing it at least by adding a layer of encryption is a best practice. So since this is critical, it will have more points. So if you enable encryption on all your storage accounts, it will rapidly increase your secure score, right? So the higher the secure score, it denotes that the more the healthy your account or your subscription is with respect to security, right? And how I go to those recommendations? So I can just go to click on the view recommendations tab, and here I'll find all the security policies that I need to maybe work on with, and with the point or maybe the max score each policy has. So for an example, or maybe the first policy here is secure management ports. So this is related to basically the network settings. So the first policy here is internet facing virtual machines. So it's saying that internet facing virtual machines should be protected with network security groups, right? So it will give us the description that what this policy is about. Okay, it will show us the remediation steps, that how can we actually go to that resource and remediate this security policy that we have in place. Or it also provides it also provides a trigger logic app here. So it is grayed out here because our resource is healthy, we have already configured the security policy, hence this button is grayed out. This button basically what it does is actually go ahead and automatically remediate the security misconfiguration that is present on the virtual machine. So we'll go back again to the recommendation. We'll see some recommendation which has not been followed. So here it says that virtual machines should encrypt temp disk, caches, and data flows between computer and storage, right? So again, here we'll have the detailed description of what the policy is about, why we are, why Azure is recommending this policy, and why is it a security best practice. It will show us the recommendation steps, and then if we want to remediate it from here, we can just click on the resource that we want to remediate and click on trigger logic app. Okay, so here I guess this logic app has not been enabled, hence it's not showing up. But basically once you enable it, it will show up there, right? Similarly, it will show you findings for AWS resources as well, because I have integrated one of my AWS resource. And that's it. I mean, basically it will provide you a view with respect to all the resources in your account, and attach a security score to each of the policy, so that, I mean, it's maybe a kind of motivation that you have, that you will try to overcome or remediate a policy which has the higher score first. And that's why they have added this max score feature, or a scoring feature for their secure score, right? So that was a short gist of the secure score. Now the other important aspect that we had. So I talked a lot about the compliance standards. So I mean, I don't consider myself a security expert myself, and it's very difficult to understand the security standards that have been set by CIS or HIPAA or other. I mean, it's a very big or an uphill task. So for a normal user like me, I mean, how do I go and I have to spend a lot of time in understanding the standards first, and then trying to implement it. And even then I don't have the guarantee or maybe any assurance that I have completely understood the standard and I have followed each and every practice that they have mentioned. So, and again, it's increasing the go to time of my product. So if I am a startup guy and I have a startup, and if I'm trying to implement all these security policies by understanding each and every compliance standard myself, I am delaying my go to market time basically. So I'm delaying my product to be in the market, and which is not what a startup guy wants, right? So here comes the regulatory compliance part. So what this does, it provides us a view, or an easy to understand view, with respect to various standards that we earlier discussed. So it has the PCI DSS standard, and it also has the Azure CIS standard, right? So we'll maybe walk through the PCI DSS standard. So one statement here that they make is install and maintain a firewall configuration to protect cardholder data. So as I mentioned earlier, PCI DSS deals with the fintech companies or in the financial domain. So if you, I mean, go through this compliance standard, or the statements that are made within this compliance standard, you'll see most of those are related to users cardholder data, passwords, or anything like that. So here if I go inside it, it will basically map me to resources that I need to update with respect to this statement that has been made by PCI DSS. Imagine, I mean, just reading this statement, right, and trying to implement it on resources. You are not aware, where you need to implement these policies, which resource you need to implement these policies and everything, right? And which is a very uphill task. So that's how simplified Azure has done, or maybe that's a simplified view that Azure has provided for us, so that we don't spend time on, or maybe don't spend a lot of time on these standards, and basically concentrate on the findings provided by Azure first. If you want to harden our system even more than that, then we can spend a little time, but it obviously won't be much time if we try to understand the compliance standard from scratch, right? So that's how important it is. And then you have the Azure CIS benchmark as well. So this again is an easy to understand set of policies that is defined by CIS. It will talk about best practices that you should follow when you create or work on resources or services that are provided by Microsoft Azure. So a few policies will maybe go through that state that ensure that MFA is enabled for all privileged users. Again, a very important aspect, because two-factor authentication is what saves you from, even if your passwords are compromised, you have your own device through which the multi-factor authentication happens. And until and unless your device is also compromised, you are all good. I mean, the hacker cannot get into your your system or anything like that, because you have MFA enabled. A few other policies maybe will go to some storage accounts policy, which state that ensure that public access level is set to private for blob containers, which simply means that your blob containers or your storage accounts should not be public to the internet, right? And so on. I mean, these are all a very simplified or maybe very easy statements that most users can understand. I mean, it's very simple as compared to what there is in the theory of these compliance standards. So that's how simple Microsoft Defender for cloud is making things for us. All right. So that's the demo for today. This is just a disclaimer, maybe because Microsoft Defender or maybe security in itself is a vast domain, and we can talk and talk about security. I mean, it's a never-ending topic. That's why I limited the demo to only these three components, because they are easy to understand, and it's a starting point for everyone who is new to security, right? So you can, I mean, I hope this helps you start at least on using Microsoft Defender, and at least have or helps you motivate to implement all those security practices on your, in your organization, or maybe if you are a student or working as a freelancer or something like that, you are working on your own projects. So this is a good starting point for you guys, right? So we'll be back to our PPT again. I hope you all like the demo. Now moving ahead. So again, this is a summarized view of all the findings that is provided by Microsoft Defender. So it basically provides us, details around lack of encryption on databases, storage, application traffic, and whatever involves sensitive data. It provides the details of, I mean, we didn't see this policy, but it does provide details of, encryption keys and things such as rotating keys regularly. So this is a best practice most of you must be aware of, that whatever keys or secrets that we are using must be rotated regularly. So Defender will provide us a view similar to saying that a certain key has not been rotated since the past x days, and if the number of days, that is x, is larger than a certain threshold, it will tell you that it's time you rotate your keys. Then it talks about overly liberal account permissions. So basically, if any user has high level permissions and he's not using it, it will also provide you details of that. It will provide you details with regards to MFA that we just saw. It will provide you details of misconfigured network connectivity that we saw in case of VMs. That is the security group that was attached to the VM. It will provide you details around the data storage exposed directly to the internet. We saw that too, right? With regards to the storage accounts, it will tell us if the logging and the monitoring features are enabled or not for our network flow logs, database accesses, or any other privileged user activities. Also, it provides us vulnerability assessments, OS baseline misconfigurations, and an alerting feature, which we talked about during the setup of the Microsoft Defender, right? Now again, everything comes at a price, and we have seen memes and a lot of people making fun of the security teams, right? That they are spending a lot on security, but there are still breaches happening. So this happens because, as I said, security is a always evolving process. It's a never ending process, and there is always something new to learn in security, right? So Azure is helping us by its own way by providing this tool, Microsoft Defender, and it comes at a certain cost. So I have illustrated the cost of a few of the most used services that I felt all use, because This involves servers, that is the VMs. It involves app services. It involves the database SQL. It involves the storage accounts. It involves Kubernetes for people or organizations who work on Kubernetes. There is container registries, containers, and keyword. So this is the approximate bill or maybe the price for a single instance of each of these services per month. So I mean, given the count, even if we take we are using 10 of each of these services, the bill will be roughly around $400 a month, which I think is quite fairly priced. And for the security or the features it is offering, the centralized view it is offering, I guess $400 is maybe worth the spend, if it is providing or maybe proactively helping us implement security measure and also alerting us in case a security mishap is happening. So $400 I feel is much more worthy than the data that we have of our customers, right? So data is priceless. So I guess $400 here in this case would be enough. But again, as per your usage, the cost will go on. So I have shared the link of the pricing calculator for Microsoft Defender in the references page. You can go ahead and maybe select your usage pattern and calculate the monthly cost for using Microsoft Defender. These are the references that I have used. So the Microsoft Defender documentation, it's a very good starting point for all the all the folks who are interested into security and want to explore about security. There is the pricing calculator, and I also referred the shared responsibility model documentation that is provided by Azure. Okay, so finally, for any questions, I'll just check the comment section now. And if you still have any questions after post this session, you can reach out to me on my Twitter or my LinkedIn. You can DM me directly, and I'm always available for any queries. And at the last, I would like to thank the Australian developer community for providing me this opportunity and giving me this stage to talk maybe to the audience of Austria or maybe whoever is listening worldwide, giving me an international speaker tag. So I really thank you for the opportunity. And a last thank you to all the audience who have been patient in listening all the talk that I have delivered. And I hope this was useful to the folks listening around. Thank you again.
Many thanks, Ankit. This was great.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Super. I especially like the demos you showed, and everything works with Logic Apps, as I see.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Super. So many thanks for that, Ankit. We will publish the video of this recording, I think, a little bit later, and I will close this stage here with an info about AltSpace, because we will have an AltSpace party, and
Right.
I will post the information how to join in here in the next minute. So many thanks to everyone who joined.
Yeah.
Thank you to all the speakers, and take care. Hope to see you in the AltSpace. Thank you.
Bye-bye.